G'day, folks. Chris McLean back with another episode of the show. And in the studio today, I've got Tuan Luu, 8 times best-selling author, strategic marketing advisor, and founder of GrowthBase Agency. And GrowthBase Agency is a leading client acquisition agency that helps Aussie real estate agents generate listings on demand. And Tuan also runs an agency incubator with a small group of students, of whom some have gone on to build their own successful agencies, serving more real estate agents, both nationally and internationally. Sounds like you got a bunch of really cool stuff going on in the agency and real estate space. Tuan, thanks so much for dropping by, mate. Good to have you here.
Yeah, no worries. Appreciate the awesome intro, mate. And I'm happy to hop on and have a chat.
Yeah, so obviously we were talking before the show that I've had a couple of lead gen guys, sort of real estate lead gen guys on the show before, who are obviously peers of yours who you've worked with in the past. So good to know that the fraternity is building out there in the Aussie-based real estate agency world. So take us through, before we sort of get into that side of things, take us through how did GrowthBase come about? Why the focus on real estate? Sort of how did this whole journey kind of kick off for you?
Yeah, sure. So before we start to GrowthBase, we'll take a little bit of a step back in terms of beforehand, right? How did I get into this to begin with? So I always grew up in a sort of a semi-entrepreneurial family. So my own parents were immigrants, and there's always been that self-employed mentality. So growing up, kind of didn't really resonate with, the typical traditional sort of path. So the most natural thing to do was to after university, get into, starting my own businesses, right? So over a couple of years, what I did was, obviously tried a bunch of different things. And in terms of the last, say, 2 or 3 years, more so before COVID was in full swing in 2020, right? I was sort of semi-living a bit of around the world. So I was running both a publishing company, and two, doing a bit of the marketing consulting for different categories and different niches, and real estate is one of them, which we'll get into in a second. So the lowdown in terms of GrowthBase and how we got here in terms of Australia. So around March 2020, right, knowing that the country was about to go into lockdown, came back to be with family, so on and so forth. But then also, when I came back here, I realized something quite interesting on the marketing side of things, right? So a lot of what we were doing, so in terms of the real estate market in the US, right, kind of the lead gen marketing stuff we've been doing for some of those guys, as well as people overseas, Australia was a little bit still behind on that side. So I realized it was a big gap, for instance, right? Because at the time when we hopped on, a lot of people were still just providing, for example, just very simple, basic leads, right? So then we realized there was a bit of a gap in market in terms of, okay, how do we actually help these real estate agents, put them in front of legitimate, like vendors who actually have an inclination of wanting to, sell their properties, right? So what we did overseas, right, was we used a ISA component, which is short for inter-service agent, which is more of a call center to pre-qualify and so on and so forth. And then we decided to take that over to Australia. And I remember chatting to a couple of my team members about doing so. And it was Australia's still at the time unknown territory in terms of how the performance was going to be. But I kind of semi sold them on the vision of, look, we're able to do it elsewhere. Now, this is kind of like a Christopher Columbus aspect where, if we make it work, this would definitely improve, and this would definitely help all the agents in my home country, right? My home soil, basically. And I'm not sure, I don't know, blah blah blah. But we took that risk, and it worked out for the better. And and that's sort of how GrowthBase was started, right?
Yeah, right. So were you said you were based in the US, were you sort of, but you also mentioned you were global. Where else in the world, and sort of where were you mainly based? Was it mainly the US market, or were you in other parts of the world?
Yeah, so I sort of live a semi-digital nomad existence, right? So one of the publishing business, I was running that out of I lived across Southeast Asia, so mostly Thailand, Vietnam, I lived for a little bit in Europe as well. And actually, now that the obviously the borders are slowly opening back up, I think I've probably just gone back and living over there. But lived in the US for a little bit, and our team mostly does the work in the US market, right? And then we basically bought a lot of that down in Australia.
Yeah, right. So is there? I mean, they're quite different markets in terms of how real estate operates, the buy and sell, and all that sort of thing. Was it quite easy to kind of replicate that success in Australia? As you say, it was a kind of a bit of a gamble. Was there much adjusting that you had to do, or did it kind of fit the market? Did you really have to adapt it to? Is a market that was further behind, that might not have been thinking in the same way? What was the challenge there?
Yeah, Chris, that is very interesting, because when we adapted over, it was a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of adapting, right? Basically, because it's one completely different market, sentiment's different, right? But also in terms of receptivity and people's awareness of basically being basically pitched or qualified in this kind of way, right? So there's a few things there as well. Like I remember even just you were talking about, say, terminology, lingo, certain buy-sell sort of differences, and even down to pacing, the energy, communication of our call center team, right? So I remember when we were considering bringing one of the reps over to one of our Sydney campaigns for our clients, and this one girl, she actually was in the campaign we're running for the Florida market, right? So you can imagine it's a very different sort of pacing, right? Language is different. Then there was a lot of hours just listening and auditing the recordings of what went on, and then going, okay, so this needs to change, this needs to change. We need to basically do extra sort of training to kind of almost smooth it in, right? In a way where it's palatable to the Australian market, right? So the risk was one thing, but it's also, okay, so in order to actually make it work, right? Because agents saw a tremendous amount of value, right? I remember when we just rolled this out, right? A lot of them had never heard of this kind of thing. They thought it was really good, and a lot of them actually wanted to give us a shot, right? Based on track record. But then it was just intense period of, like I said, just adapting the system, the language and the sequences and everything like that. So definitely been a challenge, but definitely been worth it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Sort of maybe part of adapting something that people wouldn't consider is literally the tonality and the words and how you speak, and maybe how aggressive you are, right? I guess like Miami, Florida, New York, that kind of vocab and that energy versus chilled out Australia and Melbourne, very, very different culture, but just a different type of style, right? Very different vibe. So matching that energy is something that I guess for agency owners maybe looking to expand into different markets, it's something really worth considering. Is what do you say? Like you said, what's your sales script look like? What are the energetics of how you present this? Not just vocab and that kind of thing, but what's the energy behind that? That has to suit the market as well. So I think that's actually a really interesting consideration, and must have been a fun process to go through that and work out how to dial it down for a more chilled out market.
Yeah, definitely. It's quite interesting, right? In that I feel a lot of, in terms of at the moment, in terms of the current landscape of people, whether they're sort of in the beginning stage of the agency, is they take maybe a bunch of programs and trainings, right? And then they basically execute it into a market or a niche, right? Which is fine to get going, but as you work with the market, as you learn and as you explore it a bit deeper, there are little finer nuances that you need to learn, develop the understanding through, obviously, speaking to the market, gathering that sort of intel, right, and then adapting it, because then otherwise you'll just be, you just wouldn't be effective whatsoever, essentially.
Yeah. So we sort of touched on this earlier. We sort of come a little bit full circle, but what you sort of, when you started, you weren't specifically focused on real estate, right? What was that rationale? Why did you pick real estate? Was it purely a place that you found you had really good success in and you could replicate the success easily? Was it something you just enjoyed more? What was that kind of reason to go, right, I'm going to narrow down and niche down into real estate?
Yeah. So the funny thing is, in my earlier 20s, right, a lot of people always said you would, whether it's a good or bad compliment, I'd see you making a good real estate agent, right? Because I used to do a lot of sales-driven roles,
Right.
direct sales, right? And I thought, oh, okay, interesting. And for some reason, that just stuck with me for a while. And I remember just sitting down with myself and the team and just thinking of direction to narrow down in terms of agency, right? Because we were just doing construction, plumbers, real estate, dentists, and then we just had to make a decision in order to just really cut through, right, in terms of the messaging, our prospecting, everything. And real estate just made the most sense. And also, this is another consideration in terms of niche, which is the people you work with, right, which is your clients. Would they mirror and would they be able to resonate? Would you be able to work with them? Would they be able to understand why certain things need to be done, right? So, for instance, what you find with not all, but a lot of real estate agents have to be entrepreneurial minded, right? In order to actually make things work, right? You have to be able to think in terms of marketing and sales and, going through numbers, right? So it's a very different energy than, say, dental or restaurant is. So wavelength is incredibly important, right? So it's not really say for me personally, it was real estate because it just felt, and that's one of those things that's not it's a logical decision, but also two, it's also your own personal preference in terms of it's gut and intuition is what it is, right? So that's usually the correct answer.
Yeah, finding that alignment is so important for agencies to go to. If you niche down into something that you're either not curious about, that you don't have history in, that you don't interesting is that you don't resonate kind of energetically with that personality type, that kind of thing. If you're sort of going back to what we were saying, if you're naturally a super chilled out kind of agency owner and you're trying to push into like high-end corporate brands or something like that, where it's faster paced, super energetic, maybe more type A aggressive personalities, that if that's the audience you're going after, it's going to be very, very hard because you've got that personality mismatch. So as you say, for yourself having that kind of real estate energy, that sort of sales driven entrepreneurial energy, finding that audience that resonated with that. When you hit that, was there kind of a switch like, this is it, like now it feels right, and you're talking the same language to clients and they make onboarding and the sales process and marketing much easier?
Yeah. So that's another big thing as well, right? And you're quite on the money there, Chris, about that energetic match, right? And this is something which it's kind of almost, as an agency owner or just even any entrepreneur, a lot of it's also a part of your own self-awareness in terms of what is your own archetype, how do you mesh and gel with different types of people. And with real estate, that was a very natural fit, right? Because language, right, was fit. So the question that someone has to ask is it a fit? But if it's not a fit, right, but they want to go into a certain direction, are they willing to then adapt and bend certain aspects of themselves in order to fit into that, right? But the best answer usually, right, is, okay, does this feel natural, right? Because as you and I both know, right, it's not an easy path. So you want to make that aspect at least as seamless as possible, right? Because so then you can focus on other challenges.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard enough as it is. Why make it harder by having to put on a suit every day if you hate wearing suits because you're dealing with a certain type of client, or like an emotional suit or an emotional mask, right? And needing to be somebody other than who you naturally feel like. I think that's a massively underrated thing that a lot of people don't talk about, particularly in agency space and business spaces. we talk about energy and vibe and this kind of terminology, but I think it's super important because it comes down to that. The thing that you're doing, running a business, is hard enough. Don't make it harder by having to pretend to be somebody else. But I think a lot of particularly agency owners do that because maybe they see a type of agency, or somebody sees someone like yourself and goes, real estate's crushing it. That's where I need to be. It's high ticket. That's where I'm going to make money. And they try to push into that when that's not the type of person that they are. And it makes everything else harder. So I think it's massively, not spoken about enough, and an important thing to get right.
Yeah, and a big part as well, and I was telling a couple of students in my incubator, right, because you just actually spot on. A lot of them chose real estate agents just for the reason that I got to real estate and some of our early students did, but comes down to personality type, right? And and a lot of times it's also just being honest with themselves about, who they are, which is fine, right? And then just not needing to seek that kind of approval, right? Because it's real estate. Whereas I said, okay, so tell me a little bit about your background. Who do you feel comfortable working with? Oh, I feel comfortable with construction builders. Okay, why don't you do that? Oh, I want to do real estate. And I said, what is the rationale? Because it's a proven path. And I said, that's the wrong way to kind of look at it. Yeah, there are many paths which are proven, right? Like that you can basically crush and have success in. But none of those things actually matter. It's the one that you ultimately pick that's actually the best fit for you, right? Because the last thing you want is to kind of almost build a house up and you don't even like it. You know what I mean? So
you hate living in it, and you got to live in it every day. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's key. It's key.
Yeah, massive. So obviously you've had good success in this, and like to sort of touch on the incubator. So you've obviously had good success in this, and you're now helping that next generation, or you're helping other agency owners to get better at sort of putting the foundations to their business and building their businesses up. What does that sort of program look like? Is it real estate focused, or like you said, you're really helping them find their own path and find out what's right for them? How do people work with you in that incubator environment?
Yeah, sure. So the agency incubator is basically it's a 12-week intensive, right, to start an agency, to help them get the first few clients, scale, learn fundamental skills like outbound prospecting, sales, setting appointments and taking appointments. It's not real estate focused, even though there's a lot of leaning towards real estate for the reasons that I just mentioned. But the way it works is you take someone who completely new, they're a beginner, right? Or maybe they've kind of been in it for a while, okay, to learn things, like I said, cold outreach, right? How to get your foundational message, how to craft your offer, right? How to really dial down niche, the offer, the transformation, in order to actually cut through the marketplace. Because in order to actually stand out, right? Because amongst other agencies, there are basically things that one needs to do in order to actually differentiate, right? So things that we work on as well. It just so happens a lot of them want to go into real estate, like I mentioned before. So that just happens to be the case, right? But so I never actually envisioned actually starting the incubator, right? It kind of just eventuated one thing leading to another as a result of because I'm obviously invested in a lot of different high-level masterminds, and where as you share your wins, your accomplishments with people in the community. And I was interviewed by one of my mentors, Ravi, and then since then a lot of people started reaching out at that point, right? And then at the time I offered to help a couple of people, and there's one good friend of mine now who actually from Melbourne, and he reached out because he was offering the same thing that everyone else was offering in the real estate market in Australia, and nothing was sticking, and also just client results weren't there. So offered to help him, change up the offer, right? Added on unique differentiation elements like the ISA team and a few other things, as well as the cold outreach. And then now he's just doing really, really well, right? So And then from there, he said, you know what, you should actually coach. You should actually help. Consult. And I was like, oh, I guess
Sure.
I guess we should, right? And then that kind of led down this path, right? So it's funny. It's funny because they always say, action leads to insight, right? So a lot of this, you kind of stumble across, right, the opportunity as a result of starting where you currently are at, right? And being aware of what that looks like, and then just doing so, right? Because the right answers, right, 5-10 steps from now will be obvious as a result, essentially.
Massively important point is to stay in action, right? To keep momentum moving. It's very easy to hit a problem, hit a snag, and stop, and feel like you can't move forward. You feel like you need like I'm stuck here, and I need the perfect thing. I need the perfect answer. I need the secret hack to move forward. But yeah, it's so much more important just to take some sort of action to move, to do something, just to sort of keep flowing and keep moving. And as you rightly said, that's how you find the answer. You're not going to find the answer, as you said, sort of 5 steps ahead. If you don't take those steps, you got to move towards it to get, and the answers tend to present themselves as you kind of get moving. But yeah, sort of keep maintaining that momentum is super important. On that, what is that kind of one of the main places you find agency owners get stuck? Or if you had to sort of look at some of the key areas, the main areas where you see agency owners sort of at that fledgling startup place, startup phase of their business, where do they tend to get stuck other than the basics like offer, market, audience? Is there other stuff in there that you see them getting snagged up on?
The biggest challenge that I'm seeing at the moment I'm almost calling it an agency pandemic, is a obsession with tactics, an obsession with gimmicks and softwares and mechanics, right? And that is going to bind them in ways that they are not even aware of, right? So what I'm seeing, and seems to be the topic that we've been discussing here, is self-awareness, but also the other thing is also your paradigm of beliefs, right? Because, and I've noticed this, say, from consulting, from acceleration, but even so, some of our real estate agents, because we observe the data in terms of which of our clients perform the best and which of them are struggling, right? Irregardless of, say, deliverable in the systems, and even, say, on the consulting side. And it doesn't have anything to do with, the tactics, the tools, scripts, and everything, right? Because it's all standardized across the board. It has everything to do with the person's own paradigms, their internal worldviews, right? Their relationship with money, their self-worth, their self-image, right? And this has implications on how comfortable they are with high-ticket sales, how comfortable they are taking on basically critical conversations, client expectation, right? Client management. Because what you'll find, right, is, yeah, you can give someone example structures and SOPs, right? How do you run a kickoff call? How do you, say the words to manage expectations? But a huge part of client management, and a huge part of it is it's psychological, right? So 100%. that is a big intangible that I'm starting to see across a significant data set. That, okay, so if everyone's getting the same things to be able to execute on, right? What is this? What's the intangible thing that's missing here, right? So a big part is the foundations, and the foundation starts with the person. It's kind of almost Dan Kennedy calls your personal operating system. So that's the big consideration there, and that's something which almost does not seem to be talked about whatsoever online, basically.
Yeah, totally agree. It's a major part. That's an angle that I approach coaching agency owners from myself, because that's what I found, right, when I was running an agency, was you can do all the stuff and more and more as you sort of have more and more conversations and see inside more and more agencies that there's so many tactics and scripts, and if you get everyone the same thing, everyone can get the same toolkit, and out of 100 people, 3 to 5 get really good results. So it's clearly not the tactic or the hack or the software system or the process or the SOP that's the problem. That stuff's pretty standardized and pretty, you can massively standardize. There's fundamental stuff that you need to do. It's more how you approach it, who you are when you show up to do it, your internal operating system, as you're saying, your belief systems, your thinking, all of that intangible stuff is kind of that's where the results either come or don't come from. If that stuff's switched on, you find people get really good results. If that stuff's, there's some blockers in there, where people are sort of stopping themselves from learning or stopping themselves from through an old belief system that's like around money. If you've got some money issues and you're trying to sell high ticket programs, that's going to be that resistance for people. It's going to be very, very difficult to convince someone to pay you 20 grand when you think that's a massive amount of money, or you don't deserve that sort of money, or money's for evil people. Like it sounds like basic stuff, but that internal rhetoric really goes a long way to shaping and creating your reality, right?
Yeah, Chris, and I'm sure as you would know when you coach, right? The interesting thing is you always rediscover things which, one, maybe we've done a lot of work to grow, and then there's certain little things which we take for granted, but then it comes to the surface and say people that we help, and then we go, oh, okay, I understand, right? So it's quite a powerful process. It just allows that deepening of the process, but also in terms of identifying it in where we were basically before, so on and so forth. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's a fascinating process to sort of start lifting the hood of the the internal biology and psychology of people, and that's, as we were saying, that's where the magic really happens. But it's number one, understanding that that's often the case, that can be an internal blockage or something coming from you that's stopping the result, and not so much, Facebook doesn't work, or LinkedIn doesn't work, or this script is shit, like this script isn't converting. If 10 other people are using that same script and they're getting results, then there's something else in that equation.
And
that's us, right?
And a lot of things work in symbiosis, right? So then there's example, the routines, the actual tracking the daily disciplines, right? And also allow that slight edge of results happen. So that's one side of things, but it's also, this is where the work that you do is extremely powerful, is that this is another thing as well. A lot of agency owners, especially even at the start, or even if they've been around for a while, they try to tackle problems and growth in a linear, sequential fashion. Whereas the kind of internal growth that you're talking about leads to quantum leaps, right? Because it's not so much about layering things on in order to get that 20% increase. It's more so, okay, so what do I as an owner, how do I as an owner need to grow in order to hit the next level, right? It's something that I say to one of my students a while back, is that if you want to be able to run a multi-six-figure agency, 7-figure, whatever it is, then you need to be able to grow as a person that's going to be able to do so, right? So it's not, don't wish for don't wish for that. Just wish for, what is it that they say? Just wish for basically better ways to better handle, better solve the problems, right? Because at every level,
you need to become that person.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Bang on. If you want to run an 8-figure business, you've got to become the type of person that runs an 8-figure business, right? And that's where you're talking about that quantum shift of, it's technically it's the same amount of work. We've all got 24 hours in the day. It's the same amount of work, effort, focus to build a 6-figure business as it is to build an 8-figure business. What's that difference? What's that quantum leap? Yes, tools, processes, systems, leveraging people, all that kind of stuff goes a long way, but those quantum shifts, those exponential shifts often come from becoming the person that can have that fully is invested and fully believes that you can have that result. So that inner game, that inner work is so important. And love seeing other people out there bringing this to the agency world, because I think it's particularly an industry where this conversation hasn't happened or doesn't happen as much as it does in kind of other entrepreneurial endeavors or creative business agency businesses, and you might find there's very much hustle grind mentality out there, whereas rest and recover is sort of less obviously talked about, but there's massive wins in that self-awareness and kind of the meta skills or soft skills side of things.
Yeah,
wins to be had there.
That one's the most difficult one to because we're at a sense in terms of collective consciousness, in terms of where we're at in terms of as an industry. You're absolutely correct. It's hustle and it's grind, and it still borrows a lot of paradigms from the old school business world. And to get even more interesting, because I was having a chat with a colleague of mine in this space, right, who does consulting as well, is when you're helping and you're selling services and you're helping local businesses, most business owners, right, who are in their paradigms, right, and yours, certain things, like let's say what we're discussing and what we're talking about on this kind of podcast, it's not something that would even come to the surface, right? But the fact that it's not come to the surface is also the root solution for a lot of different things, right? So it's one of those things where you don't have a lead generation problem, right? You might have an offer problem, but also let's go a little bit deep underneath that, right? So in terms of traits of what makes someone be able to succeed as a real estate agent and someone who actually doesn't make it work, right? And that's one thing in terms of expectation management. It's not, you see how so people have extractions of layers, right? So on a surface layer, a student might ask, okay, so what do I say to handle this, basically this, put out this fire basically from this client, right? So one layer could be, okay, say X, right, to solve Y, but that's going to put out that fire, but then it's not going to solve all of the other fires that's going to come in the ensuing weeks. So let's just go a little bit deeper down there, right? And about, say, your own understanding. And that's one thing. I was having a chat with one of our clients on one of our end of month reviews, and he absolutely agreed, right? And the reason, and there's no surprise why they're doing well, is because of the mindsets is in place, right? Basically, what makes the difference between someone who's a successful agent and someone who's not doing so well, right? So online lead generation and client acquisition is not the thing that solves the problem, right? So for instance, if they're not able to make their own existing bases work, then just adding it on is just going to be disastrous. It's just going to exacerbate the problems which already exist, essentially.
Yeah. Touching on something really important. I think it's so important to learn how to learn and learn how to think. Right, that really is that's that quantum stuff where you're talking about. That sort of quantum growth is actually learning how to think properly, or think as an agency owner, and that's how you solve problems over time. You've got to learn how to solve problems rather than going, here's the problem, well, just do X to get Y. That might, as you said, might fix it in the short term, but you haven't learned why that works or how that works or how to do that for yourself when something unexpected shows up. So I think that's a massive part of coaching somebody and helping them grow and tap into that stuff is, how do you actually think properly? What does correct thinking look like? And when you can get that, that's where that person can now face any problem, any challenge, and they've got a mindset, they've got a way to deal with that because they know how to think about it. They know how to handle their emotions. They can dial up and down. They can move through. Their mental game's more on point. So super, super fascinating stuff. And stuff that personally, and I can see for you as well, I hope this conversation happens more and more and more, particularly in our industry, because it's this is the stuff that makes a big difference. And SOPs and all that stuff is really, really good. But if the person's broken, then the business is going to be broken.
That's right. And it's one of those things where you can give someone training wheels, or you can give someone the mechanics where, to a certain level, they'll be able to make things happen. But it's one thing an old mentor said to me, you're not going to outgrow your level of personal development, right? Your level of growth, whether it's in business, it's just not going to outpace it, because it's really there's no such thing as business problems, only your personal problems that reflect in your business life, whether it's in operations or whether that's in the way you manage or communicate, the way you lead, for instance, right? So are you familiar with a book called Spiral Dynamics?
No, haven't read that one.
Definitely recommend it. Really good recommendation for in terms of leadership, right? In terms of different paradigms. What takes example in terms of, and you can even see it in terms of how organisations, and even so more so on the country scale. It's quite a dense book, but definitely recommend checking that one out.
Yeah, often those are the ones that are hard to get through, but the ones that sort of a paradigm shifting when you get that sort of dense information and you can map it to something that you already know. So I'll definitely check that one out. Sounds like a great recommendation. Tuan, I'm sure we could probably chat for the next 4 hours about this stuff. We'll probably have to pick this up offline. But thank you so much for dropping by and sharing and sort of igniting this conversation, because I think it's so important that particularly for agency owners and creative agencies, that we start to tap more into ourselves and our self-awareness, and recognize that if things are going wrong, there's something the thing that shows up every time when things are going wrong is us. And until we change ourselves, when we change ourselves, those challenges and objections often start to go away and just dissolve, and we get those quantum leaps. So really important conversation. Thanks for bringing it up. I'm glad we got there and glad we got to have this conversation.
Yeah, not a problem. It's the conversation that some of the audience probably weren't expecting to learn from, but it's definitely needs to be had. Happy to be in the show, mate, and hope you guys got some value.
Yeah, no, appreciate you dropping by. If people do want to connect with you more, get some more value like you've shared here today, where are some of the best places for them to come and find you?
Yeah, so if you happen to be a real estate agent, obviously you can go on GrowthBaseAgency.com, schedule in a call. We can have a bit of a chat, see where you're at, see how we can help you, right? And in terms of connecting with myself, you can do so on the links just on the screen there, just on Facebook, right? LinkedIn, similar thing. And in terms of being able to book in, have a chat, right, and working together, I recommend shooting a message through to my assistant, Sophia, at GrowthBaseAgency.com. If you send me a message on Facebook, chances are I wouldn't be able to see it. So the best bet in terms of speed, if you want to get something happening, right, is just to send her a message, and then we can organise time, have a bit of a chat, and make something happen.
Perfect. And as always, I'll drop all those links in the show notes so the folks at home can pound one of those links and come and get connected to. Mate, thank you so much. Super important conversation. Loved having it. As I said, I'm sure we could wrap for another few hours and deep dive this stuff and deep dive the psychology of agency ownership and business. So yeah, appreciate you bringing this up, and appreciate everything that you're doing and supporting folks, not only building their real estate agencies, but building up their agencies and becoming better human beings in the process. So appreciate you dropping by. Great having a chat.
My pleasure, Chris. See you soon.
Thanks, mate. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in at home, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.